Hi, this is Hamlet Batista from RankSense. Really excited to be here. My first time at State of Search and put together, a presentation leveraging AI, user-generated content. See how we can synthesize that content and produce new useful content based on that. So let's see what I put together for you today. And let's start from a familiar place, right? You probably heard about this quote from Steve Jobs around um, that it's hard to connect the dots moving forward when you're trying to come up with new ideas and new innovative approaches to solve difficult problems. It's hard to figure it out looking forward. It's a lot easier to look at, to make the connections looking backwards, right? And so I want to, show you the journey that I went through to put in context my solution that I'm going to present today here. Right. So it starts with a case study. We had a client that came to us, more beer, with a problem that they had a terrible downtrend for a couple of years. Couldn't figure out how to solve it. We went through the site, did a traditional, audit on the site, performed a technical audit. And then something interesting happened is that we started playing around with tagging changes to learn what changes are driving the results. And we were able to identify, out of all the changes that we implemented with our software, we saw that the meta descriptions were the main drivers for the change, right? And when we did that analysis of, wow, the meta descriptions, when we look at the pages, drove the difference, started to drill down, doing a data analysis on those pages, and we found that specifically the pages that didn't have descriptions, and then we added those descriptions, provided the lift. And when we look even further and we look at content pages, they had content pages about brewing techniques, and we saw even specifically the type of pages that were sustaining the improvement. And it made sense to us to see that, and they couldn't figure out, because that's typically the last item on an SEO list, right? So that's not something that you put in a lot of attention because it doesn't affect rankings. So it's not immediately obvious that you need to improve it, right? So we addressed it, and we saw that was very interesting. So I have a link here so you can check it out in more detail, the study that I conducted here, right? So then we said, wow, that's an interesting concept, right? What if we can take this? We took a new client, and Etsy launched a new study. They show how you could do SEO A/B testing. So I started playing with that idea of, wow, you could actually A/B test changes in SEO, right? Especially by grouping pages, not necessarily different visitors. So in this example, what we did is meta descriptions were powerful. So we said, let's take ideas for these meta descriptions from paid search. When we did that, our experiments, we run like 4 different groups in parallel. We created statistical groups, and 2 of the experiments outperformed the copy that was produced manually, the meta descriptions that were produced manually by the copywriting team. And we said, wow, that's really powerful. And it was because we learned it from paid search. It's a sophisticated process. As I mentioned, we created statistical groups that behave similarly, and we leave a couple of groups for control, so we can do the comparison against the controls. The control groups are forecasted, and we're measuring the changes against the forecast. This is a sophisticated approach, but you can check out the article that I wrote for Martech Advisor that explains the methodology there, very detailed, and you should be able to see that, right? As I said, I'm taking you through the journey about these different dots that I put together over time, and I say, wow, it's really interesting, right? So then I wanted to understand, why. So then January 4th, 2018, I wrote another article, and I said, look, why is it that the meta descriptions are showing better performance when I make the changes? Then you look at the paid ads, right? What do you see difference in these paid ads, right? Clear benefits, right? You know, people looking uh, for discounts. They're looking for, fast shipping. They're looking for no risk because there is a return and everything, right? But for the same search result, when I look at the same search result, look what happened with the organic listings. No benefits, right? So I look at the whole list, and maybe at the last one, I see a mention of the benefit, right? And why is that? Because meta descriptions, and when it comes to organic search, you're just copy and pasting content from the page, right? You're not having somebody messaging, carefully taking a look at the messaging, right? And that's the big difference, right? So we in SEO, we're just looking at, oh, as long as it ranks number one, the top one ranking, oh, we're done, right? But if the messaging doesn't connect with the user, right, you might be missing out on traffic because it's it's it it's a missed opportunity. So I came up with this concept that I call the two salesmen to explain this idea, right? And this idea of the two salesmen is, so picture that you have a store in a mall, right? You have two salesmen in the store with two different purposes, two different goals. So one of the salesmen is going to be outside of the store, and he's going to try to pull people in, the traffic, the walking traffic from the store, try to pull that traffic, pull that people into the store, right? Then you have the other salesman that is going to take care of those people once they decide to come into the store. He's going to try to convince them or help them so that they buy the product that they want, right? And why I make that analogy? Because the salesman that is outside the store needs to use a completely different strategy. The salesman outside the store needs to explain why you should come to the store in the first place, and it's going to be more aggressive and more competitive. But the problem is that the meta description is going to come out in the SERP, so it can be the inside salesman strategy for organic search. We have to use the outside salesman strategy to convince people to click on the ads and comment, right? So the other, I have that insight, so that analogy explains it, right? But the other thing is, what I learned from running these experiments, we've been running them, very successfully after we learned this since then, is that the people are not just randomly clicking on the first listing in organic search. Just the ranking is just one element. It's like getting people just in the front door of the store. But if they don't move in, that's not enough. So that's not enough just having the ranking. Making sure that they click and the people that we want to click and come in is even better, right? So then, we had, the other insight was this, right? So we said, wow, this ad stuff is working great. So one example is, with NewPig, we had these promotional offers that we pulled from their paid search, and we found that winning experiments. But another client called Farmer doesn't have any offer, doesn't have anything, exciting to share in the messaging of the organic snippet. So we couldn't stand out because all the products are boring. You probably have a business that is in that boat, right? We don't have anything really exciting to share. Share B2B stuff like that, right? So we said, wow, how do we come up with a concept for this client? Because we couldn't figure out how to make it work with them, right? So we couldn't find anything obvious from paid search. So what we did is we came up with this idea of pulling the copy from the reviews. So they didn't have anything exciting on offers or anything on the website. But something that they did have for the products is a lot of reviews, right? So they have these reviews on their products, and we came up with the idea, oh, what if we pull from automatically scrape the reviews, the 5-star reviews, and pull sentences where the users are praising the product and why they're purchasing the product in a scale, right? And we tried that crazy idea of pulling the reviews from the product, embedded them in the meta descriptions. And this is an example of what it will look like, right? So we will say, right, the name of the product, right? Like it was before, right? Name of the product, with the elements of the product, and then a quote, put it in quotes, the comment, the high praise from the user. In this case, I will buy this product again and again, right? And the beautiful thing about that crazy idea is that it worked really well. So it worked really well in terms of driving clicks to the site. And not only that, the in-house SEO person at the company, right? Emily that wrote this article for us, she was also checking the conversions and tracking the performance, not just that we were driving clicks, but they were incentivized and motivated to actually buy. So we saw increase also in the conversion rate and the performance for the site. So that was really incredible. Really amazing that from the reviews we were able to do that, right? So, but you say, how do you connect the reviews with this stuff with the ads, right? Why would the reviews will be something that you will use for this, right? And this is the concept, that I was able to do this stuff, right? And it is when you look at the page search data, right? We're looking at the ads for the benefits, clear, right? This is the main, thing standing out on paid ads, clear benefits, right? Now you look at the reviews, right? Very similar. So when the users write and praise the product, why they purchase it, they tell you the reason why. And the reason why is the benefit that they receive from the product. So they're telling you what exactly they liked about the product, right? Do not require alteration, stuff like that, right? That is information that you might or might not even have in the description of the page, because that's what, from the user's point of view, why they purchased the product, the same thing, the same idea or benefits. You see, that's the cool thing about this, right? Now, to more generalize, all this stuff, right, is part of a broader concept of persuasion from a psychology perspective. If you haven't read these, national bestsellers, it's fantastic. Describes 6 key psychological pools that you have, drivers that drive people to action. In the case of reviews, we're talking specifically about social proof. Well, there are other things like scarcity. Anytime we're using social proof, scarcity works really well in terms of messaging in ads, or the organic or paid search. But there is also other elements. So I will invite you to read the book so you get, more detail and insight into these strategies, right? But this is the same concept that copywriters use in, paid copy. You can leverage the same ideas with organic search. But as I'm saying, not limited just to thinking about having the copywriter manually writing them, but cool ideas like, wow, what if I can specifically leverage reviews for this, right? Pretty cool, right? So, but for this presentation, I said, wow, you see how I'm connecting the dots in this, right? Now let's talk about, I don't want to stop just on the search snippet result, right? What if I can use AI, and not just produce the beautiful search snippets, with the pulling from the reviews? What if I can use reviews to actually generate content? And the content that I'm talking about, that I'm generating here, is FAQs with the rich snippet as well, right? So I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You might have category pages with no content, very little content, but you might have a lot of products on that category that have reviews, and then we can take those reviews from those products and generate FAQs for the products, and also for the category pages. Think about how powerful that is, right? So that is exactly what we're going to do here. And the beautiful thing about this is that for this example specifically, we're going to use free reviews, a few review data set from Amazon. Some it's for researchers primarily. It's not allow me to illustrate the process, but you could do the same with the reviews from your site. So you can work with your review provider and scrape, download or scrape the reviews that you have and apply the same technique, right? Use the review content, as I mentioned, as the source for questions and answers that are generated using AI, including the structured data for those FAQs as well, right? And we're going to take a small detour in terms of removing duplicates. When you're dealing with a bunch of reviews, there's going to be a lot of repetitive information from users. They're going to be saying the same things in a lot of different ways. So we're going to also take a look at how we can get rid of those, right? Really, really, really cool stuff. And I have a link here to the call app Colab is kind of like it's a Python notebook with all the instructions on how you can walk through the steps that I'm going to show you here, right? So you open it, it's going to open your Google Drive, and you can walk through the steps to do that, right? So let's look at that, right? So the first thing is, we need to download the reviews from Amazon. Amazon has a massive data set with 130 million. You put 130, it's 130 million customer reviews for research purposes. They're in tab delimited format, and I'm gonna show you some code snippets that we're gonna use just to pull that, download it into Google Colab, right? So you can open the link here. It's kind of like a notebook. I put some preset data sets specifically for this example when I look at the wireless data set of products. And you just have to click play. You see where it has the play icon, I have some comments here. You can see what the data set looks like, has the IDs, the reviews text, unzip it, and then I'm going to load it in a data frame. Data frame is kind of like an Excel within Python. You can look at the elements that I downloaded from there, and here's what it looks like. For the wireless product, I have the different products. I have the number of stars, the number of votes. Very useful and simple, right? Just downloading the data set, put it in the Python format. Now it gets interesting because once I have it there, I can filter my data set. For example, here I said I only want star rating 5, and I want at least 50 votes, right? And I'm looking at a specific product, right? And pulling the review copy. And with that code, do a little bit of cleanup, and there I have the text, right? From all those reviews that I downloaded. I think it was a few hundred reviews I downloaded from that. Very simple. And I can use different categories, different products that I want to pull the reviews, right? So I have the text in raw format cleaned up a little bit from the users, right? And now that I have those reviews, we are going to remove the duplicates. So what happens? Why do I have to remove the duplicates? Here's an example, right? One review could say the same thing in different words, right? So this is a nice quality top, and quality was excellent, right? So there's sentences that don't add any new or useful information. So with this, I'm going to show you, I'm going to be able to just remove those duplicates. So I'm going to have useful new information, right? And the technique that we're going to use for this is called semantic textual similarity, right? And this article from Google explains how this works, right? So you can have textual similarity, right? So you have two phrases that are exactly the same when you're matching them. But, for this, as I show you the example, it's not going to be exactly the same word. It's not going to be worded exactly the same. So we have to use semantic textual similarity. So how does that even work? So one way to understand this process, how these algorithms are built for that is, for example, this explanation from Google. One technique is that they come with this concept. They say, wow, no matter how the question is asked, if the answer is the same, I have to think that there is a semantic similarity, because doesn't matter how you're asking for how old you are, or what is your age, or any ways that you want to express it. If you provide me the same answer, I have to think that there's a semantically similar, right? It's a very powerful concept. Now we're going to see it in action, right? So we're going to use this library. It's called Sentence Transformer Documentation. It's a state-of-the-art library that allows us to make perform this semantic similarity with very few lines of code, right? So I can provide example text, and let's see how we do that, right? So you see we have the sentences, fit it into the library for the comparison, and let's see how we do that in the code here, right? So install the library. Here's some examples of the sentences. The cat sits outside. The man is playing the guitar. The dog is placed. So when I run it and do the comparison, right, I see that the new movie is awesome and the new movie is so great, score 0.98, right? So it's very, very similar, but the other ones are not any similar at all, right? So now what I do is I take the text from the reviews, right? All the sentences, and I'm going to split the text in, I'm going to split the text in sentences. That's the first step. Sorry. Once I have all the sentences, I'm going to create a simple process to duplicate them, right? For simplicity, I just split the whole text in two blocks. And then I took half of it and the other half, and I created the embeddings. Is how you represent the sentences in numbers that are closely similar. And then we perform a comparison using cosine similarity. So what I do is for the ones that have at least 6.6 score, you see everything appears to be working. It works, right? Similar. So anything above 600, you can change, well, you know, based on your data. I identify them as duplicates, and what I do if there are duplicates, I change the sentence for a blank sentence. So essentially, I strip it out, right? So yeah, very powerful process here, right? So now we go to the interesting part. Now I have the pages that are not duplicated. This is the straightforward because you just have to go through the code here. So what I do is now that I have the text in this duplicated, I wrote an article for a search engine journal that explains this process for, you know, random text, right? It basically has the code here in the notebook. You feed the text, and from feeding the text, look at that. It generates both the answer in the question from the text. Look at that, a great battery for a great phone. How does the battery compare to other smartphones? How long does a full charge last? 3 days. Look at that. Super powerful, right? And how long does it take for the phone to recognize the battery, right? A couple of cycles. And yeah, so all these questions, obviously you are not going to be able to use all of them, but it's a lot less work to just review and edit them and remove out the ones that are not going to be useful for your specific use case. But this was completely generated by a computer. How crazy is that? I'm going to explain how that process works after this, right? And but you know, finally, I want to show you with a template to generate the schema. I can simply pass the questions and answers to the schema, and it will generate them. Pretty cool. So generate the JSON LD. I'm going to copy this JSON LD, and I'm going to paste it to the rich results test, right? So now that I have it in the rich results test, right, I can verify that it works correctly, right? So you can see that the rich result test is working great. So look at that. Very useful, right? Questions, answers, completely automatically generated. But think about the implications of this. All this content was from the reviews. It's generating the questions, right? And answers from the reviews from the users. How crazy is that, right? Very powerful stuff. So yeah, so let's, very cool idea here. So yeah, so you see that I think I skipped. See what happened. Looks like I skipped the part where I explain how this works, right? So yeah, so this is the part, you know, I didn't get to explain this part. So basically, this model, essentially the way that this works is 3 models. You use one model that will identify answers in the text, in the reviews. And That's the first model, just finding the answers, right? This is an approach. There are different ways to do it, but it's one approach. This is answer aware question generation. So the first model finds the answer, right? And you say, oh, how's it going to find the answer without the question? Well, you can do entity recognition, right? So you identify entities in the text, you find dates, you find people, you find places, and that could be the answer. That's one approach. Once you have the answer, then you have another model that given the answer and given the text, it will produce questions that will result in that answer, right? That's the next model. And then the third one is can take the questions generated and the text and confirm that it can find the answer, right? And we'll do the third party. So now the cool thing is that all these three models, when we use Google T5, Google Transfer text-to-text transfer transformer, it will do all those three. You only use one model. It will do all three things end to end just once, right? Really powerful stuff. So you open my Colab and you go to find it and see it there, right? So resources to learn more. I wrote an article for the Bing blog about this, where you can learn a little bit about in more granular detail about how this question generation happens, how it works. I used even a really cool analogy using GPS, using a GPS analogy. And I wrote another article for SCJ that talks about this full process that I just described, what we're using it with reviews. I would like you also to check out a commercial product in the works, which is Archimuse First Draft. They share with me, a PDF of a content that it was fully generated with their machine, with their product, which is it takes, instead of doing questions and answers, it takes a content brief that their tool also generates. Generate a content brief, from the content brief, generate the content. It looks really great. And you have a link for early access. It's hard to talk about content generation. I mentioned GPT-3 because it's been, super hyped. Once you check this article that talks about some of the limitations, and why, might or might not be something you want to use in the immediate term in terms of the content generation. And if you want to learn a little bit of Python to be able to use this code, modify the code I provided, here's a link on my SCJ introduction for SEOs to do the Python generation. And finally, my company, we do, SEO automation using Sheets and deploying experiments in the CDN, specifically Cloudflare. So make sure to check us out. And we have a beta access that can actually generate meta descriptions automatically for you. Just provide the URLs and we'll generate them. Thank you very much.